Yo, what's up? Long time no see. I don't think I've done a vlog in like a month. But I have some stuff to update you guys on, both reading and lifestyle stuff. So, first of all, I started My Contrary Mary the other day, and I'm actually really enjoying this. So this is set in the same world as My Lady Jane, and we follow like one of the same characters that we met in that book, but we get a lot more from her in this book. So we're following this girl Mary, and she's the Queen of Scotland, and she is like an animal shapeshifter, so she can shapeshift into a little black mouse. And we're following her, and she has like this little girl gang kind of going on with her ladies in waiting, and she and her friends like run around and do things they're not really supposed to do. And then I think there's also like a sapphic relationship forming. Like in chapter 2, there was definitely like some sapphic vibes going on. So I'm really excited. This is actually going a lot better than I thought it was going to go. So I'm stoked about that. So I started that the other night, and I also started Six Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. Now listen, so I started this for my new book club that I'm participating in, called the Shelf This Book Club with some other booktubers. But honestly, I'm not really enjoying Six Crimson Cranes, and I'm thinking that I'm gonna DNF it because honestly, the characters are so irritating. I kind of hate all of them, and I kind of wish they'd all just die, to be honest. So we're basically following this princess, and I think her name is Shiori, and this is set in like an Asian fantasy world, which is really cool, and the setting is great. But Shiori has like 2 whole brain cells, this girl. And then her family, she has like 6 brothers, and then her dad and her stepmom. And honestly, her brothers are mean, her dad is mean, and her stepmom is super mean. And like right at the beginning of the book, the stepmom does something to Shiori that's just like really mean for like no reason. So honestly, our main character has 2 brain cells, and her stepmother can choke because she's horrible. And I also feel like this book is almost like almost a little bit sexist, honestly. Like the stepmom is treated really bad. Like she doesn't even have a name. Like the stepmom married the dad and then kind of came into this family where the dad already had all these kids and stuff, and like the kids don't even know what her name is. And they've been married for like years, and she doesn't have a name. Everybody just calls her like the nameless queen, and she doesn't really talk, and nobody really like pays attention to her. And then Shiori isn't treated very well by her dad or her brothers either. And they kind of just like dismiss her like she's just worthless or something. And it's like her dad is just trying to marry her off to some dude. And it's just like stupid, and she's not even like allowed to leave the house or anything, and her dad is really controlling, and her brothers are controlling, and it's just like, dude. And then I don't really like Shiori, the main character, either. She's just like stupid. She does stupid things, and she's always like running off, getting into trouble, but like she has no like goal or anything. She's just kind of like flitting around being stupid. And then there's also dragons in this world, which sounds cool, and it is kind of cool, but I don't know. Everything is really confusing. The timeline of this book is also really confusing because it's not really linear, but it's not like intentionally non-linear either. So I'm just like, what is even happening here? I don't know. There's a weird dragon, and Shiori's being stupid, and her family sucks. So I don't know. And I feel like the writing is not that good either. Like the world is really cool, but the characters are just ruining it for me. And I just can't. So I'm DNFing Six Crimson Cranes. I'm sorry. And I also don't get it because this was on so many people's like best books of the year for 2021. And I'm like, are we reading the same book? Because this is just not it. And I honestly think it's even worse because I am reading My Contrary Mary also, and I just finished My Lady Jane. And these are also YA fantasy, but these are done so much better than Six Crimson Cranes that I'm just like, why? I don't want to read Six Crimson Cranes anymore, so I'm out. So that's happening. So I think I'm going to keep reading My Contrary Mary today and just see how much more I can get into it. And then also, today is Saturday. It's Saturday morning, and I'm starting a new job on Monday. So I'm not going to be working at the library anymore. I got a new job that's actually a big girl job with like salary and benefits and the whole bit. So that's super exciting, but I'm also really nervous. So anyways, that's happening. Yeah, my new job is as an office manager for the accounting department at my university. So very cool, very nerve-wracking, but yeah. So I also don't know, that's going to kind of mess up my filming schedule too, because I'm going to be working like 8 to 5 days a week. So I'm going to have to film like on the weekends, I guess, or when I get home from work and just like, I don't know, put on a bunch of lamps. Or I also got a new ring light, so maybe I'll break that out and just do some like night filming. I don't know, we'll see, but I'm definitely going to keep filming, so don't you fret. But I'll have to keep you updated on the new job, because I really have no idea how the new job is going to be, but we shall see. So anyways, that was an ungodly long update, so I'm gonna go. What are you doing, Petunia? What is that? Hey, hey. Don't be trying to touch me with your stick now. Hey now. Little snail shoe. Oh, that's so weird. Wow, that's cool. What up? I got a reading update. So, I am now like 140 pages into My Contrary Mary, and honestly, this book is so good. I kind of thought that this was going to be like mediocre, but honestly, this is sitting at a 4.5 stars right now. Like, this is so fun. So it's kind of like My Lady Jane, where we have a lot of people who can shapeshift into different animals. And then, you know, there's this fantasy kingdom, and there's these two characters, Mary and Francis, who are in an arranged marriage, and their relationship is really cute. I really like Francis. He's actually really cool. And then we have a third point of view from this girl named Ari, and she and one of the Queen Mary's ladies in waiting kind of have like a thing going on. It's very cute. So it's queer and it's fun, it's fantasy, and there's people shapeshifting into animals and stuff. And then there's also some like political stuff going on. So honestly, this book slaps. Like, what the hell? Why did I not read that earlier? It's great. And then I also started another book. So this is a poetry collection, and it's called The Road Between by Courtney Peppernell. I don't know if you can see that. Sorry, I have a bookmark. But anyway, so this is a poetry collection I've had on my physical TBR for a long time, and I have not picked it up until now. And so I read this author's other book. She writes the Pillow, I think it's called Pillow Talks poetry series, but I have the second one that I read, and it was really good, but I haven't read any more of her stuff. And a lot of this is like kind of simple poetry. It's sort of like more Instagram poetry kind of stuff, but there are some in here that are kind of like longer vignettes almost, and I really like those. I feel like Courtney Peppernell's writing, like, she kind of gears it to be more like the simple Instagram poetry kind of vibe, but I feel like some of her longer poems in here are almost bordering on like being nonfiction vignettes kind of. And also I noticed in this collection it's pretty obvious that there's a lot of like queer discussion going on in here, and it feels kind of like there's some like female-female relationship stuff going on, which is really cool. And I don't think that I picked up on that the last time that I read Courtney Peppernell's poetry, because it was like quite a few years ago that I read her other collection. But yeah, so the writing is like pretty simple and stuff, but some of the poems do kind of hit. So I'm having fun with this so far. I think right now it's sitting at like a 3-star. Like it's good, and it is kind of like feel-good poetry, which is nice because I've been working a lot lately, and so when I get home from work I have like 2 whole brain cells firing, and so it's kind of nice to read like more simple poetry that's not like, you know, using like super complicated language and like tons of metaphors and stuff. Although I will say with this one I feel like the author maybe spells things out a little bit too much sometimes. Like sometimes it's like, you know, I like it to be up for interpretation and like a little bit more nuanced than some of these poems are, but they're still like comforting and kind of fun to read. So I am having a good time with this. So that's what I'm reading at the moment, and I'll update you when I have something else. And also, you probably would have seen some clips of Peyton and I going on some walks and adventures and stuff. We went on a walk the other day and we found this really cute cat at the end of a cul-de-sac, and she was so friendly and she just came up and was like rubbing on our legs and stuff. And then we also went on a walk yesterday through the Arboretum, and it was really cool. And there was like a frozen pond, and it's really nice right now in the Arb. So anyways, so we went on some adventures, and yeah, so right now I have a day off, so I'm trying to read as much as I can on my days off, because during the week I'm working a lot, and by the time I get off I'm like, you know, I come home and eat and basically go to bed, because two brain cells firing up here. But anyways, I will see you later. Hey, what's up? It's time to wrap up this vlog. So before I get into my final thoughts on all the books I read, I really wanted to show you guys this new crew neck sweater that I got. So it has this really cool skeleton reading a book with some roses and stuff. So I got this from Inkwell Threads. I found them on Instagram and I saw this sweater and I was like, oh, I have to have that. So I will leave it linked down below in case you guys want to go check it out and check out some of their other stuff, because they have some really cool like bookish t-shirts and crew necks and sweatshirts and stuff like that, and I think they're really cool. So I just had to tell you about that because I'm going to be living in this sweater for my next few videos, so get used to the skeleton because he'll be back. So since I last spoke to you, I finished 2 books. I finished The Road Between by Courtney Peppernell, and then I also finished My Contrary Mary, and I think I'm kind of coming out of my reading slump now, thank God. But both of these were still like sitting in the 3-star range, so they weren't like favorites, but they were still fun and good and I enjoyed them. So let's talk about The Road Between. So this is, like I said, a poetry collection, and it's kind of a longer one. And I've read from Courtney Peppernell before, but I think that I liked her other collection, this one right here, Pillow Thoughts 2, a little bit more than I liked The Road Between, because this one's a little bit more about like breakups and stuff, and it's shorter, and for some reason this one just hit a little bit harder, I think, than this one did. But The Road Between was still good, so I'm going to give this 3 stars. And it has a lot of poems that are about like queer love and breakups and relationships and finding yourself and things like that, which I liked. And the poems are really short, so it's really easy to get through. And a lot of these poems are more like advice and affirmations and stuff like that, mixed in with like nonfiction vignettes and poetry, so it's not just, you know, straight traditional poems. And I actually kind of liked that mix of things, but I did feel like you know, this collection is pretty long for one thing, and I don't think it needed to be quite this long. And also I felt like some of the poems could have been reordered, and this might just be like a creative writing thing because I used to write a lot of poetry, and I don't as much now, but in the poetry classes that I took in college, like there's always this discussion of how do you order your poems in a collection, and like that's a really intentional thing a lot of the time. And I felt like in this there were, you know, definitive sections, and there was really cute like little illustrations and stuff that went with some of the poems, but sometimes there was poems that were like about lighter stuff, like, you know, queer relationships and love and stuff, and then the next poem would be like a totally different topic that was really like hard-hitting and darker, and then it would go back to a lighter, fluffier poem, and so it was kind of just a little bit jarring for me, and I felt like if things had been reordered a little bit, it would have flowed together a little bit easier and it wouldn't be so jarring and take me out of the story. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that's one thing that did kind of bug me. And then I also felt like some of these poems are really simple to the point where like they're not as nuanced as they could have been. And if they would have been a little bit more nuanced, I think it would have hit a little bit harder. So there was certain times where the author like would basically say in the last line of the poem like what they wanted you to get out of it, or what the, you know, what the advice was, and it was like, okay, at some point you have to trust your reader and trust that they're going to get it, what you're saying, you know, without you explicitly stating it in the last line of the poem. So I felt like that was a little bit unnecessary. So anyways, that's why it's a 3 and not a 4 or higher. And then with My Contrary Mary, this one, I kind of was like going back and forth over what my rating was going to be, and I think I've decided on like a 3.75, so it's like almost a 4 but not quite there. So one thing, this book is over 500 pages, it's very chunky, and I felt like for a 500-page book, not a lot happened, to be honest. I think this is one of those books that's really like light and fluffy and fun when you're in it, and then it's kind of forgettable once you're out of it, if that makes sense. So one thing I did like though is the characters. The characters were great. I loved Mary, I loved Frances, I loved Ari, and those are the 3 POVs that we get, and they're great. And all the side characters were well developed and they were fun, and there's this really fun like little friend group of girls and they support each other and it's really sweet. And then there's also people in here who can shapeshift into animals, and that was cool. And I liked all of the like political scheming that was going on, and there was some like, I don't know, like mustache twirling villains kind of that were trying to mess with the royals, and you know, they had these political schemes going on and they were kidnapping people, and there was some light murder and such. And I really liked that. But I felt like the beginning of this book was like 5 stars, and then the middle dragged a lot, and then the end was like a 4. So I'm like, what do I do with that, you know? So I'm gonna do 3.75 because the middle definitely dragged, and the main thing I was here for in this book was the romantic relationships. So we have Mary and Frances, who are a couple, and they get like an arranged marriage. And that's not really a spoiler, that's an obvious thing from the beginning. And then there's also this like side couple that is in a sapphic kind of budding relationship. And those were great, except the problem is that for 2/3 of the book, the couples are not together at all. They're in different countries because there's all this political stuff going on. So that kind of sucked. And Mary and Frances had like so many dumb fights, and like most of their interactions in this book were dumb fights until the end, and the end was great. The end, I was like, oh man, is this a 4? You know? But I was like, no, because the middle dragged too much for it to be a 4. But, so I don't know, I'm kind of slightly annoyed at this book because it had me with the characters and the relationships, and then it's like it just didn't do that much with them, and I felt like I just wanted more, you know? I wanted more of them being together as couples. I wanted more, just more happening, more action. Because a lot of this book is like the characters traveling between different countries, and it was a lot of like, you know, descriptions of them traveling. And then as soon as they would get to a place, they'd be there for like 5 minutes, and there'd be like one event that would happen, and then they would travel back to wherever they came from. So I'm like, there's too much traveling. Stop traveling and start communicating with each other. But I don't know, that's also just me. But I will say, that I did enjoy this, and I think that if you liked the first book, which is My Lady Jane, this one that I talk about all the time, if you liked this, then you might want to read this because they are set in the same world, and there is a point where the characters from this book show up in this book at the end, and that was great. But that part felt a little bit rushed to me, to be honest, even though it was really cool to see them, you know, like coming together in this book. But anyways, so I think a lot of the cool things from this book are in this one, except the first book did it better. And I also felt like the plot of this book, even though, you know, the plot was clearly not like the focus, it was really similar to the plot of book one. So it was kind of like, okay, there's not a ton of stuff happening, and a lot of it is stuff we saw in book one. It's just happening with different characters. And these characters, you know, their romance is not as developed as the romances in book one were. So anyways, that's just my 2 cents on the matter. But anyways, so I did enjoy this. And it is really, really easy to read. Like, it's very readable. It's very funny. I love the humor in here. The characters are great. The animal shape-shifting is really unique and fun. And I liked all the political intrigue and the stuff that was going on with the different queens and the French court and the British court, and all of that stuff was very fun. But the plot just didn't do it for me. And Mary and Frances just argued too much. And it was frustrating. But they did kind of like grow out of it at the end. And then also, I think my favorite character at the beginning was Francis. And then we got to the middle of the book and he kind of turned into like a whiny baby. And then by the end, he like kind of came out of it. And I think it was supposed to be like a character arc, like, ooh, Francis, you know, is mature now. But it was more like, you know, why was Francis's character all of a sudden being a whiny baby? Like, it kind of felt like it wasn't him, if that makes sense. Like, his character wasn't really consistent all the way through, I didn't think, which sucked because I really liked him at the beginning. So anyways, that's my thoughts on My Contrary Mary. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you got to the end, leave me a green heart emoji for My Contrary Mary. And if you want to check me out on any other platforms, I have my Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads linked down below. If you want to check me out over there, I do post reviews on Instagram and Goodreads. And then I'm always like hanging around on Twitter if you want to come hang out. So until next time, I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!